Welcome to 6 Degrees of Wiki, a podcast where two sisters find the 6 degrees of separation between Wikipedia articles that don't seem to have anything in common. I'm Rosanna.
And I'm Nikki. Today we'll fall into a Wikipedia spiral where Rosanna has just 6 rounds to figure out how the first article could possibly be connected to the last, while learning all sorts of peculiar facts along the way. Let's get started. Today we're spiraling from Octopus to Venus. Round 1. An octopus is a soft-bodied, 8-legged creature that lives in the sea. Venus is a planet in the sky, in space, somewhere far away. Rosanna, do you see anything these two items have in common?
When you first said that, I thought you meant Venus the goddess. And isn't she the one in the shell?
Yes, Aphrodite. It's the same person, yeah.
That's what I thought the connection was. Then I was wrong. Oh, 8 planets, 8 legs. There you go.
Nice. So an octopus has 8 arms. It's from the order Octopoda. It has a really soft body, and it can squish into lots of different places, and also squeeze through really small gaps. They have a siphon that they use to expel a jet of water to help them move really quickly. They also use it for respiration. They have a really complex nervous system and excellent eyesight. They're some of the most intelligent and behaviorally diverse of all invertebrates.
Oh.
They also show up in mythology as sea monsters. For example, the Kraken or Kraken of Norway, or the Akorakamu of the Anu, and possibly the Gorgon from ancient Greece, like Medusa. So today we get to learn about some octopus behavior. A lot of the species grow really fast and mature early, and most octopuses live in a den. They often share it with fish, crabs, mollusks, echinoderms, and sometimes because they've arrived there as scavengers, but sometimes just because they managed to survive capture by the octopus.
Interesting. It's like a commune.
Yes, like a commune.
Stockholm Syndrome.
They also use a lot of camouflage. They defend themselves against predators using ink expulsion. So they have this little ink sac and they spurt ink out of it to make a cloud and get away. Also can change colors and sometimes even textures of their skin to look like something very different than what they are. Some octopuses have paralyzing saliva they will inject into a crab and then use their hard beak to dismember it. And some actually drill into the shell of a mollusk to inject nerve toxins just to disable it so then they can easily open up the shell and eat it.
Ew, gross.
It's pretty scary.
That's disgusting.
They have a really complex nervous system. The nervous system allows them to move their arms independently. If their arms aren't getting any input from their brain, the arms can still move on their own. And this, combined with the fact that some octopuses can just drop an arm when they're being attacked, that arm can continue moving to distract the predator.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
It is crazy. And they can get away that way.
Okay, all right.
They also learn really well. They can solve mazes. They also have shown to have both short and long-term memory. They've also been shown to actually play.
Aww.
Which sounds really nice. They can break out of their aquariums and sometimes into others to get food.
Heard about that.
They've even boarded fishing boats and open holds to eat crabs. The veined octopus actually collects discarded coconut shells and uses them to build a shelter. And sometimes I've seen pictures where it looks like they're wearing one as a little hat. But that's an example of tool use, but I think it's an example of adorability.
Sounds like playing to me.
Does. An interesting fact. My favorite octopus fact. They show up all over folklore, but one in particular I love. The Hawaiian creation myth says that the present cosmos is the last of a series of cosmos that arrived in stages from the ruins of the previous universe. And in this story, the octopus is the last survivor of the previous alien universe.
Oh.
Which is pretty cool.
I never heard anything like that.
Round 2. Rosanna, what do you think the next degree is between Octopus and Venus?
Well, I can't think of anything that would connect the two. So I'm going to fall back on that one time when we had Diana from Happily Ever Aftermath on, and you went from something crazy like castles to jigsaw puzzles. So...
that was weird.
My guess is maze.
Maze. Okay. Unexpected. Your guess of maze is incorrect. The next degree is Kraken.
I mean, of course I considered that, but...
Do you know me at all?
I mean, how's a Kraken gonna get to space anyway?
Space Kraken. Octopuses, according to Hawaiian creation myth, are from space anyway.
So it's just going home, is what you're saying. Got it. All right, tell me about the Kraken.
The Kraken is a legendary sea monster of giant size. It supposedly dwells off the coast of Norway and Greenland.
Really?
Authors over the years think that the legend originated from sightings of giant squids that were close to 40 to 50 feet in length.
Please don't tell me that.
And because they were so big and fearsome looking, it made it a common ocean-dwelling monster in lots of different fictional works. It was first described by Dane Erik Pontoppidan in 1752. So in modern German, Krake is the plural of Kraken, and that means octopus. It can also mean the legendary Kraken, but it can just mean a regular old octopus. So it's really all about context. Now, octopuses, while very similar to Krakens only have 7 arms, and octopuses have 8, as we know. Erik Pontoppidan was the Bishop of Bergen, and his first book, aptly named The First Attempt at a Natural History of Norway, he said that the real danger to sailors wasn't the Kraken itself, but the whirlpool it left behind.
Oh.
Now, here's the problem with that. A lot of the traits of Kraken actually resemble undersea volcanic activity, which happens a lot in Iceland.
Ah.
So, bubbles of water, sudden dangerous currents, and appearances of new islands.
Interesting. Why do you have to spoil all the fun, though?
In the early 1800s, there was a French malacologist named Pierre Denis de Montfort, and he proposed that the 10 British warships that were lost mysteriously in one night in 1782 were actually attacked and sunken by giant octopuses, or Kraken. Now here's the problem. One of the survivors came back and told what really happened, and there was a hurricane. I mean, I don't know which is more likely, a hurricane or Kraken. It's really up to you to decide.
Maybe all the creatures threatened the guy's life if he told, so he made up the hurricane.
That definitely seems more likely. Round 3. Okay, Rosanna, what's the next degree between Kraken and Venus?
Oh, jeez. Is it... I mean, nothing seems like it could ever be connected.
I'm doing my job right.
Is it Dane Erik Pontoppidan? Did I say that wrong?
Dane Erik Pontoppidan. Yeah, that's right.
Is it Dane Erik Pontoppidan?
Amazing accent.
It's Pontoppidan. I think it's because the way I wrote it down, because I was trying to say it right, that I ended up pronouncing it. Is it Pontoppidan?
Guess of Dane Erik Pontoppidan is incorrect.
Oh, gosh darn it.
Next degree is Greenland.
Oh, of course it is. I had that written down, and that was totally reasonable, but you've been so weird about it that I didn't pick a reasonable one.
Never can tell. I'm a woman of great mystery.
You're fired.
Greenland.
Okay.
Greenland is an autonomous constituent country. It's within the Kingdom of Denmark, which I hadn't realized before, and it is situated between the Arctic and Atlantic Oceans. So technically, it's part of the continent of North America.
It is?
Yeah. I was surprised, too.
Yeah, huh.
Greenland has generally been both politically and culturally associated with Europe, particularly Norway and Denmark, for more than 1,000 years.
Wow.
It became a Danish colony in 1814. Now, the population is just under 56,000 people.
Wow.
But it has an area of 836,330 square miles, which is almost 15 miles per person.
Wow. Oh, that's nice.
Now, here's another thing. There's an ice sheet that covers almost 678,000 square miles.
That's not great, then. No.
No. But that still leaves almost 3 miles per person.
That's nice. That's a lot.
Yes. It's a lot of space. Not many people. It's the world's largest island. Now, Australia and Antarctica are technically larger, but they're considered continental land masses and not islands.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
So the people of Greenland, it's been inhabited on and off for the last 4,500 years, which is less time than I had expected.
Well, yeah.
But it was lived in by the Arctic peoples who migrated from what is now known as Canada. And also, Norsemen had settled on the uninhabited southern part of Greenland, starting in the 10th century. And the Norse colonies completely disappeared by the late 15th century, when Norway was hit by the Black Death. The majority of the residents in Greenland are Inuit, and their ancestors are the Tulli people. Let's talk about ice on Greenland. 3/4 of Greenland is covered by the only permanent ice sheet outside of Antarctica.
Wow.
If the Greenland ice sheet melted away completely, the world's sea level would rise by more than 23 feet.
What?
Yeah.
23 feet?
I know. It's almost unfathomable.
That's insane.
It's so much.
That is a lot of I mean, that's... I'm shocked, Nikki. I'm shocked by that fact.
That's a lot of ice.
Wow.
Here's how much ice. Just imagine this. There's a survey led by French scientist Paul-Émile Victor in 1951, and he concluded that under the ice sheet, Greenland is actually 3 separate islands.
What?
It's disputed, but we can't tell if it's true. If they were actually islands, they'd only be separated by really narrow straits. But still, the fact that there's so much ice, we can't even tell.
My mind is blown. I am, as the kids say these days, shook.
Now you're woke. Fun fact, Eric the Red from Iceland, he had been exiled from Iceland for manslaughter, and he took his family and his thralls, or slaves, and took a ship and landed in Greenland. After he found a good place and settled there, he named it Groenland, translated as Greenland, hoping that the nice name would attract settlers there to this ice-covered island.
Yeah, I wondered. Because it has more ice than any other land, including Iceland.
Yes. So, really misnomers, those names. They need to trade names.
They really should.
Round 4.
All right, Rosanna, what is the next degree between Greenland and Venus?
Here's the thing. I don't know. And it's partially because my mind is still blown by the facts about Greenland. So the only thing I can think is that an island covered in ice is kind of like a planet covered in ice.
Okay.
So that's some kind of connection. So, I mean, the connection could be ice.
Okay.
But, like, ice as an article seems bananas. So... Also written down, I had Inuit and Black Death. So I'm all over the board here. I mean, I feel like I have to go with ice.
All right. Your guess of ice is incorrect. And you're going to kick yourself because the next degree is the Black Death.
Oh! I'm not going to kick myself. I'm going to kick you! that going to get to a planet, though?
Excellent question. Let's figure it out.
I mean, yeah, that's why we're here. I'm just saying, it seems silly. Black Death. I hardly had anything written down. Proceed.
Black Death, also known as the Great Plague, the Black Plague, or just the Plague. It was one of the most devastating pandemics in human history. And it resulted in an estimated 75 to 200 million deaths in Eurasia.
Whoa.
So many people. It peaked in Europe from 1347 to 1351. So really just sped right through. It came from the bacterium called Yersinia pestis. And that results in at least three different types of plagues. We're pretty sure one of those was the cause of the one in the 14th century. It created just tons of upheaval in religious, social, and economic areas, and it led to profound effects on the course of European history. It was present somewhere in Europe every year between 1346 and 1671.
Wow. I just heard that it's still around.
Plague was also present in at least one location in the Islamic world, virtually every year between 1500 and 1850.
Whoa.
It made it to Australia and the US in the early 1900s. It also made it to Madagascar 8 months ago.
Oh my gosh! How is that possible? What is this germ? Stamp that out!
So there are graves in Kyrgyzstan from 1338 that have inscriptions referring to the plague. And epidemiologists are pretty sure that was the beginning of it. At least the recognized beginning. It's really hard to tell. And from there it could have spread to China and India and then Europe. 14th century healers were obviously not modern in their medical practices, and they could not explain the cause of this plague. So they were blamed all sorts of things. Astrological forces, earthquakes, the poisoning of wells by Jews, which is not a thing. Also, possibly punishment by God for their sins. Because of one of those reasons, there were so many attacks against Jewish communities as retribution. By 1351, over 200 Jewish communities had been completely destroyed because of this.
Oh, that's awful.
And obviously it was not their fault. It really was awful. So there are 3 different types of the plague. There's the modern bubonic plague, which, untreated, 80% of people that get it die within 8 days. Luckily, with antibiotics, only 11% of people will die. I mean, that's still bad, but not nearly as bad.
Sure.
There was the pneumonic plague, like pneumonia, that had a mortality rate of 90 to 95%.
Wow.
And the septicemic plague, it's the least common, luckily, because it has a mortality rate of nearly 100%.
Yikes.
So try not to get that one. Now, luckily for you listeners, I left out the worst of the symptoms of the plagues, and they're really gross.
If you want to know, go read the article. Or if you're working on some sort of appetite suppressant diet.
So a little more about the bacterium. In 2010, we got some DNA evidence by digging up some mass graves. It was fine.
Gross.
And found out that the epidemic in the 14th century was caused by an ancestral strain of the bacterium that we know about now. Though there was a plague in Madagascar in 2013 that was almost identical to the strain from the 14th century.
That is really weird.
I don't know how it got there or survived, but it's a little terrifying. Interesting fact about the Black Death in 1347. This was terrible. There were multiple ways in which the plague was introduced to Europe, but there's one way in which it could have been prevented. There was a siege during which the Mongol army under Jani Beg, who had the plague, it catapulted infected corpses over the city walls of Kaffa, which then infected the inhabitants.
Oh my gosh.
And to make it worse, the Genoese traders then ran, which took the plagued ships into Sicily.
Oh my
and the south of Europe, and then it just spread from there.
I mean, that's kind of brilliant.
Brilliant and disgusting.
It's horribly brilliant and gross.
Sadistic.
Wow.
Round 5. Rosanna, what is the next degree?
I don't know if these are just really hard or if I'm way off my game today, because I don't know. I mean, like I wrote down septicemic, which I don't even think was the right word, and then also flea.
Okay. Those are valid guesses.
Okay, hold on. Let me think about what you said that I didn't write down. Madagascar.
Oh. That's a departure.
What does that have to do with Venus, though? Nothing.
They're both places.
Are there astronauts in Madagascar?
In this episode, we don't answer the age-old question. Are there astronauts in Madagascar?
The age-old question. Okay. I gotta guess. Is it blood?
Your guess of blood is incorrect. But you're on the right track.
I am?
The next degree is bacteria.
Is there bacteria in space?
I don't know. Seems like it'd be hard to survive in the vacuum. Maybe on other planets? Bacteria. It's a type of biological cell. They are most of the prokaryotic microorganisms. Say that 5 times fast. Usually they're just a few micrometers in length. They come in lots of different fun shapes, like spheres and rods and spirals. And they were the first forms of life to appear on Earth about 4 billion years ago. Not very long.
Wow.
And they're present in most Earth habitats. Some of those are soil, water, acidic hot springs, radioactive waste, and in deep portions of the Earth's crust, and even in the deepest part of the ocean, the Mariana Trench. They can also live in parasitic or symbiotic relationships with both plants and animals. And they were first observed by the Dutch microscopist Antoine van Leeuwenhoek in 1676. And he used a microscope of his own design to see them. So most bacteria haven't actually been characterized. Only about half are species that can be grown in the lab.
Wow.
Some bacteria are good. We use them for sewage treatment, breaking down oil spills, producing cheese and yogurt, sourdough bread.
I prefer not to think about that part of that process, but okay.
And they reproduce through binary fission, which is a form of asexual reproduction. And if the conditions are optimal, bacteria can grow and divide really quickly and double as fast as every 9.8 minutes. So exponentially, that's pretty terrifyingly quick. Here's a gross, interesting fact about bacteria. They can attach to surfaces and form these really dense aggregations that they call biofilms. And larger formations are called microbial mats. And these films and mats can be from just a few micrometers in thickness to 0.5 meter in thickness. Which is incredibly disgusting. Just sounds so slimy. Round 6. Rosanna, as your last guess of the episode, what's the next degree between bacteria and Venus?
Radioactive waste.
Oh, that's a good one. Your guess of radioactive waste is incorrect. The next degree is Earth's crust.
Oh. All right. How could Earth's crust get to Venus? What is... Okay.
What's more about geology? So, a crust of a planet is the outermost solid shell of a rocky planet or dwarf planet or natural satellite like the moon. And the crusts of Earth, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Io, and other planetary bodies are created by igneous processes.
All right, that seems a little far-fetched to add Venus, but okay, whatever.
The thin shell on the outside of Earth itself is really it's less than 1% of Earth's volume. And I would have thought a lot more than that. So most terrestrial planets, of which there are 4, have a pretty uniform crust. Earth, however, has 2 distinct types, the continental crust and oceanic crust.
Mm-hmm.
They have different chemical compositions and physical properties. They were also formed by different geological processes. Interesting fact about Earth's crust. So Earth formed about 4.6 billion years ago from a disk of dust and gas that was orbiting the sun that was pretty new. It formed via accretion, which is where planetesimals, they're called, and other small rocky bodies just collide with each other and stick together, gradually growing into an actual planet. So this process creates a huge amount of heat, and that caused Earth to melt completely. Just a giant magma ocean, basically. There's a theoretical protoplanet called Theia, and we think that it collided with Earth when it was forming, and part of the material that was ejected into space when they collided created the moon.
Oh, interesting.
So let's learn about Venus, the planet. It's the second planet from the sun, and it orbits every 224.7 Earth days. It has the longest rotation of any planet in the solar system, 243 days, which is equivalent to one Earth day. So a while.
That's, you know what? I've actually had a couple of days like that at work.
It's named after the Roman goddess of love and beauty, Venus. It's a terrestrial planet. It's sometimes called Earth's sister planet or twin, because they have a similar size and mass and proximity to the sun. However, it is radically different from Earth in some other respects. Its atmosphere is 96% carbon dioxide.
Ouch.
So really not breathable.
Yeah.
The atmospheric pressure at the surface is 92 times that of Earth, which is equivalent to 3,000 feet underwater on Earth.
Oh.
Venus is also the hottest planet in the solar system by far.
Wow.
Its average surface temperature is 863 degrees Fahrenheit, or 462 degrees Celsius.
Wow. Okay, it's extremely hot, is what you're saying. Very, very warm.
It's a little warm. And if all that weren't bad enough, the whole planet is covered with these highly reflective clouds made of sulfuric acid.
Oh, lovely.
Really good place for a holiday.
Well, that's why we don't live there.
Interesting fact about Venus, it was the very first planet, after Earth, technically, to be visited by a spacecraft in 1962, and the first to be successfully landed on in 1970.
I mean, no spacecraft has visited Earth. They all came from Earth, so...
Good point.
That we know of. I guess it depends on who you ask.
We've made it through all 6 degrees. We went from octopus to Kraken to Greenland to Black Death to bacteria to Earth's crust to Venus. Rosanna, what did you think of the spiral today?
I thought the spiral was confusing for me, but I thought it was fun, and there was a ton of stuff about Greenland that I thought was really interesting. I mean, the ice thing is just blowing my mind, so yeah, that'll be a topic of conversation.
The ice stuff is incredible.
23 feet!
I feel like I'll be talking about it a lot to everybody I know. It's time for Cheek of the Week. Our Cheek this week is a new review.
Yay, a review! Woo-woo! 5 stars. Love these 2. This podcast is so much fun. It reminds me of stuff you should know. In other words, it's really easy listening and super engaging at the same time. Highly recommend subscribing if you want that commute to feel a whole lot shorter. This review was from Peregrine Falk, one of the co-hosts of the podcast Dumb and Busted.
It was such a nice review.
Thank you. And check out Dumb and Busted podcast. It's a lot of fun to listen to. It's a show about dumb criminals.
Thank you, Dumb and Busted.
That's our episode. Tune in next time for another 6 Degrees of Wiki. You can keep up with us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6 Degrees of Wiki.
If you enjoyed this podcast, you can support the show by leaving a review, buying 6 Degrees of Wiki merch like t-shirts, mugs, and bags, or even by donating directly to the show at 6degreesofwiki.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.